Yo, what's up? Checking out another fun video on math, I bet. How exciting for us. Today we're going to be talking about decimals and equalities. So this is the idea of actually thinking about comparing values. Wow, that's an ing. Comparing values. Yay. So really what happens when we have multiple decimals and we kind of have to figure out like what's what. Now, of course, before we get into that, let's go ahead and think about again what that word equality means. Is something we have briefly discussed, equality, which would be different than equal, which would also be different than um, equivalent. I knew there was another word there. But equality really refers to the symbols that we use. And in math, there are three equalities. And we have talked about this. We have greater than, greater than. That's this one right here, the greater than symbol. We have less than, and that is actually how they're written. Remember, if you remember when we talked about this before, it's how we read things left to right. So, and we'll get into that a little bit. I guess I shouldn't start talking about that now. And then we have equal to. So the whole concept of an equality here is like if we were to be given two decimals, for example, which is actually the example we're about to do, what would we write in terms of using greater than, less than, or equal to? So let's go ahead and play that game. Let's dive into the action. We love the action. Here we go. So here would be our first example. We have something along the lines like 3 and 576 thousandths. We often are given this little circle, and that's where they're like, well, what symbol do you put in here? Greater than, less than, or equal to? And then we'd have our second decimal, which would be 3 and 582 hundredths. Okay, so at first glance, for some of us, when we can look at this, we might be able to already see which one has a stronger value than the other. And that's fine, right? That's not what we're trying to do here. What we really do want to think about is a process on how we can do this work, because ultimately there are going to be problems that we can't just look at right away. So it's really good to have a process and a step. And this is what I really recommend. Okay, so step one, what we're going to do is we're going to stack our decimals. And I'll show you what that means here in a second. And then we are going to compare. And again, I'll explain what that means. And then finally, we wrap it up with our equality. So if we go into that thinking the first step, here is what I mean by stack. What we're going to do is we're going to actually take, and I'll do it in green because that's what it says here. We're going to take our two decimals and we're actually going to stack them on top of each other. So I'm going to rewrite this one here. I have 3 and 576 thousandths. And then when I stack my second one, I want to stack them up by place value. So again, you notice here in the second decimal over here, I have a 3 in the ones place. So I want to put a 3 in the ones place there. I have a decimal, so the decimals go right on top of each other, right? I have a 5 in the tens place. I have an 8 and a 2, right? Do you see how I stack that up? Everything's stacked in the right place. The ones are stacked on top of the ones. Maybe I shouldn't just say that. I can show you that. The ones are on stacked with the ones. The decimals are lined up. The tenths are stacked with the tenths. The hundredths are together, and the thousands are together, right? And that is what we really mean by thinking about this process of how then we stack things up. Okay, so that's step one. We're going to stack them up. Now from there, we're going to go over to this purple step over here. We're going to compare. And what we mean by compare is to literally start to look at the values. So if I go to my ones place, I'm looking at my values here, right? And you want to start in your highest place value because that's where you're going to have the most value. And if I look in the ones place, they have the same value. In fact, as of now, right now, these two decimals are equal to each other because they both have 3 holes. But since they are the same and there's other numbers to work on, I'm going to move on and I'm going to come over here to the tenths place and I'm going to look at that. And, well, I have 5 tenths and I have 5 tenths. Well, those are also equal in value. So far, I still have an equal sign here. So I'm going to go on because they're the same. I want to keep moving on. And I want to then come to this place because this is a really great place value to look at. And remember, this is the hundredths place. And so now I just really start thinking about value itself. Like The decimal on the top, let's see, we'll use a color here. I have 7/10, and below I have 8/10. And I really just have to start thinking, like, what is a larger value, right? Is 7/10 larger than 8/10, or is 8/10 larger than 7/10? Well, cooling with decimals, it's the same as counting. And in this case, 8/10 is a larger value. So this right here, this decimal, and I don't even have to go on. I don't even have to go to that last place value. This decimal right here, this one right here, is the largest value. It has more value. 3 and 582 thousandths has a higher value than 3 and 576 thousandths. So what this tells me then is actually we want to come in here and use our last step, which is find the correct equality. And what it's saying is that this, right, if you think about that equality, this less than equality, is really the one to use, because what this sentence says, and again, I'm gonna just kind of whoop the whole thing here. I start over on the left side and I read this as 3 and 576 thousandths is less than, that's what this symbol says, 3 and 582 thousandths. And that's the correct work we do with that third step. Because yes, when we stacked and did our work over here, 3 and 582 thousandths, boy, I don't know why I had to stop and think about that one so much, is the higher value. It's the bigger number. But when we think about writing it in our quality, we actually use the less than because we're using 3 and 576 first. Wow, that was a lot. Let's try another one. Let's just, you know me, I like to do more. Let's do another one because that was a lot to talk about. So same idea. So again, let's see if I can remember what colors. I'm going to start off by do a stack, and then a compare, and then we will do a, make sure we have the right equality. Okay, so let's go here. Let's say we have 4 and 471. You know what? Let's go here. Let's go to the hundreds. So 4 and 47 hundredths, and again, this is where we'd put our equality. And then let's say 4. Oh, I wanted that to be red. There we go. 4 and 774, or 4 and 74 hundredths. Okay. So again, right, at first glance, you might be able to see it. That doesn't mean we just jump ahead and go. Like I said, practice this technique, because at some point you're going to have decimals that maybe it's a little more confusing on how to do that. And that's actually going to come up here soon. So let's go ahead and do step 1, which is stack. So I'm going to take this decimal here, 4 and 47 hundredths, and I'm going to stack it with this one, which is 4 and 74 hundredths. Okay, right? Again, everything's stacked up. Ones is stacked with ones, the decimals are lined up, the tenths are stacked with the tenths, and the hundredths are stacked with the hundredths. Now we go on and go ahead and do the compare component. So I'm going to start my ones place because that's my highest value, and 4 ones and 4 ones, that's the same thing. Oh, I don't like the way that looked. Let's fix that here. Right? 4 and 4 are the same, so I'm going to go to the tenths place, and this is the place where things are different. In fact, in one number, I have 7 tenths. In the other number, I have 4 tenths. So again, this means that, and I'm going to move these out now. This means that right here is our larger value. That's the larger value, but now we got to think about the correct equality, which actually that's the same as the last one. It would be less than. So 4 and 47 hundredths is less than 4 and 74 hundredths. Cool. All right. Let's do one more. And then we're gonna move on to another skill. So we keep things rolling. I love this. I mean, not really. Never mind. I don't even know why I'm gonna start trying to explain that. Okay, let's just do one more. So let's say we have 9 tenths, and oh yeah, I know what we'll do. Let's do this. Nope. Let's do it. 9 thousandths. Okay. So in this case, actually, one is a fraction and one is a decimal. Now remember, things can be equivalent. So that's the game we're going to play. But again, which one has a higher value? Well, let's go back to our steps. One, we are going to stack these values. Two, we are going to compare them by place values, which in this case, we can't do that unless we do some converting. Yep, another great word we've been talking about coming back. And then we'll check the correct equality. All right, so like I said, yeah, in order to stack, we actually have to be able to look at these both as decimals. It's really hard to stack fractions. We could, in theory, not even in theory, we like literally could turn this into a fraction, right? That's 9/10. But I'm not sure how I'm going to stack 9/10 and 9/100 as fractions and make sense of like what digits are in what place value. That doesn't really compute with me very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the 9/10 as a decimal, but I'm going to convert this one. And now remember, we talked about this. If you can read it, you can write it. So what this says is 9,000. So I don't hear any whole numbers. So that's 0 and then it said 9,000s, which means actually there is a 9 in the thousands place. 9,000s, 9,000s. So I didn't say anything about a 10. I didn't say anything about 100. So my decimal looks like this, 9,000s. And now we can go ahead and stack. And I'm gonna keep this one right here, and I'm just gonna bring this one over and stack it. So again, there's nothing in the ones place. There is a decimal. I have a 9 here. And then what's cool, if I want, I can actually do what we were talking about with this equivalent or like these filling zeros. I can put zeros in here to help me kind of make sense of what's missing, right? Which is actually a really good way to go about this. Because now all my place values have digits in them, right? Without those digits before, like that, sometimes that gets confusing. Sometimes it's really hard to tell, like, oh, what's going on? So I like to put some zeros in there and fill those spaces. Now, we're going to go ahead and compare. So we'll dive in. So we're going to start with the ones place, which are both zeros. So, hey, we're looking good. Coming to the tens place, and I have 0/10 and I have 9/10. Oh, well, okay, that helps. 9 is a much higher value than 0 itself. So when it comes to my equality, this time we're saying that 9/10 is greater than 9,000. Okay, so that's pretty awesome. That's it right there. I like that. So let's go ahead and think about now what to do as things come on. And we're going to use actually these steps for this next skill, but not this step because we actually don't need an equality in the next one. I'm going to show you another skill and it thinks about comparing decimal values. So guess what? New page. And here's what we're going to run across. Here's another skill we're going to have to see is, I don't know, someone in the math world just loves this game. What they like to say is they would like us to order fractions from their least to greatest in value. And then they'll give us a series of decimals. So we might have 3 and 576 thousandths. We might have 3 and 43 hundredths. We might end up then also with 3 and 580. No, I'm sorry. 508. Okay, so here are 3 decimals, and our job is to actually put them in order from least to greatest value. They might already be. That happens sometimes, but don't take that risk. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to stack. Okay. We are going to compare. Oh, I got to squeeze that in. Wow, that says compare. Good luck. And then this time, what we're going to do is we're going to organize. Oh boy, this is what I get. I'm like, give some room. We're going to organize. Okay, now, here we go. Step 1, and I'm going to need some space for this one. I don't know. I might have to do this on 2 pages. Wait a minute. We can scroll down. Oh my gosh, my whole world just changed. Okay, but I do want to try to keep these all things in the screen. Anyway, moving on. Sorry, I got too excited. So step 1, let's stack these values. Now this time I have 3 to stack. So I'm going to go ahead and take this first one, and I do recommend you rewrite them. I have some students I've seen, they like to keep the first one and write underneath it, and sometimes that gets confusing. So again, I'm lining up decimal with decimals. I'm lining up tenths with tenths and so on and so forth. I notice here by stacking them up that this could be filled with a 0. I think that would be very helpful. Okay. Um, and now, you know what? This is new. I like this. I love these moments. I'm going to switch these rules because the more I think about it, it might actually make sense to organize before we compare. So let's actually do that. We're actually going to organize and then we'll compare. And what I mean by organize is this, is that a lot of times we get lost in the instructions. So if I look at the instructions say I want to order these from the smallest to the largest, least to the greatest. Yeah, thank you for saying it 15 different ways, right? I don't know why they can't just say smallest, greatest, least, largest. Like what word do you want? But in this case, they say least, which is the smallest in value, to the greatest, which is the highest in value. Now, to organize, what I like to do is I actually draw myself a little L because that's what I'm starting with, and I end with a G, right? This again is for least, and this is for greatest. Then I also notice, and this is where actually, yeah, let's actually do this scroll down. I might be able to fit that there. I'm really trying to keep everything on the screen for you. I'm going to try that right there. It says least to greatest, right? So I am going to go ahead and again, we have 1, 2, 3 decimals. So what I do is I actually like to put 1, 2, 3 spaces. Although I guess I'm going to move it over a little bit. 1, 2, 3. How about that? Okay, cool. So now we can go to compare because what I'm actually looking for is my smallest. So if we come here in the ones place and we look, everything's a 3. Nothing is smaller. They're all the same. So I'm going to come over in the tens place and I'm going to look. And what I notice is I have 2 5s and then I have a 4. So what that means is that this is our smallest value right now of the 3 numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and write that one down. 3 and 43 hundredths. That's right. I could write that 0 in there, but remember it wasn't written up here. So that's why I tend to try to leave it out. But now this one's gone, so I'm going to erase it. I'm done with it. I shouldn't, cross it out so I don't get confused. And then I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to go back and I'm going to compare. And again, let's see. Let's use black. There's so much color going on here. I have a 3 here. I have a 3 here, so they're the same. I have a 5 here. I have a 5 here, so they're the same. I have a 7 here. I have a 0 here. And I want least. I want the smallest value. So that's going to be this one right here. So I'm going to write that one down. 3 and 508 thousandths. And again, that's why it's good to say this, because for a moment, I was about to take the highest value. And that one's done. And then this just leaves me with the greatest value of these 3 decimals, and that's 576 thousandths. And voila, my answer is done. So if we think about that work that we just did here, right? One, I'm going to stack all the decimals I have so I can look at them. I'm going to organize my paper. I like that idea of doing that second. So that's why I kind of changed that in the moment, right? I'm going to talk about like which direction am I going, least the greatest, and then how many decimals I have. Oh, I have 3. So I'm going to put 3 lines because I know I need to fill them. And then we can go ahead and compare. So let's do one more. And I say this could be one of those pause problems. So like if after I put it up, if you just want to pause the video and try to solve it and then see and come back, by all means do that. I think that's a great way to be thinking about your own learning. Let's do this. So the direction is going to be to order. And I don't mean like, oh yes, can I have 4 decimals, please? It actually just means to put in order. Order decimals in value of, let's go greatest to least. Okay. And then I'm going to give you a series of decimals to do this with. So we have 5 and 625 hundredths. We have 5 and 63 hundredths, or thousandths, then hundredths. Sorry, I think I said that wrong. We have 5 and 540 thousandths. And we have 5 and you know what? Let's have 5. And we have 5. We have 5. That would be fun. Okay, cool. So those are our decimals. So like I said, if you want to go ahead and pause it and try to do the work, go ahead and do that. I'm going to keep talking while you've paused it. In fact, now you probably already solved it and unpaused it, and I'm still talking about pause it, but don't worry, here we go. So let's see how we can do with this work. So step one, again, remember we are going to stack. So I'm going to take all 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to stack them up in values. And this is where it might get tricky. This is why I was like, oh yeah, let's do it with the 5. Let's do that. Let's see here. Where else can I play? I can scroll this way a little bit. Gosh, there's not a lot of space. Okay. Sorry, this stressed me out. I like to have lots of space so you can see. What if we did this? Oh, yeah. Look at me. Look at me. Okay, wait. Boom. Oh, I like this. Okay. Let's go this way. You're like, okay, I'm trying to learn math. And you're just like now figuring out how to do things on this computer. Come on, bro. All right. So let's go ahead and stack these out. Now we can kind of see them better. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say we have a 5 and 625 thousandths. We have a 5 and 63 hundredths. We have a 5 and 540 thousandths. And then we have a 5. That 5 literally is 5 holes. So that's the ones place. So I'm going to put that 5 right here. Now, like I said, we can go in, this deserves a 0, and we can actually give this a decimal and put in zeros. And then that way we filled all of our columns up. All right, cool. So now, oh, I like this whole, like whatever I just did so we can see everything on the screen. I got to remember that. Now we're going to organize. Organize. Man, I apologize. That literally says organize. I should do a better job. Okay, so it says here we actually want to go with greatest least. So we actually want our greatest value. And then down here we want our smallest value. We have 4 decimals, so I'm going to use 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we can just play. Whoa, 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 there's something going on. Okay, sorry. Man, wowzers. I'm like, this is like, you'd act like I'd never use. Oh, it's still happening. Turn that off. Okay, that's Oh, I love this, y'all. It's so fun. Sorry. We like get to share this moment. You're trying to learn and I'm like making squares. Okay. Now this is where we can compare the values. So if I come over here and look in the ones place, I have a 5. What am I looking for? Oh, I'm looking for the biggest number. Okay, so I have a 5, 5, 5, 5. They're all the same. Okay, so I'm gonna look in the tens place. Now again, in the tens, I'm looking for the largest number. And in this case, I actually have 2. It's these 2 right here. So I'm going to stop looking at this and this. Doesn't mean I'm not going to use them later, but right now I'm just not needing to look at them. In fact, I'm going to continue now with the top 2 numbers. And I'm going to come over here in the hundreds place, and I'm looking for the largest digit, and I have a 2, and I have a 3. Well, 3 is the largest digit. So this is my first decimal. So I'm going to come down here and write 5 and 600, or 63 hundredths. Like I said, I put that 0 in there as a placeholder, so I'm going to keep it like it's written up here. And then I can cross this one out. And I can go back and repeat the process, like literally repeat the process. I also need to go get my charger. This video is going to die in the middle of it. Hold on. God, what a fun video. Tech stuff. Now I gotta, woo. Okay, the computer was literally about to crash and this video it would have never survived. Okay. All right, back to comparing values. So we're gonna come back and again, I'm gonna go in the ones place. I have a 5 and a 5 and a 5. Those are all the same. Again, I'm looking for the largest value. If I go to the tens place, I have a 6, I have a 5, and I have a 0. Okay, well, 6 is going to be the highest value there. So 5 and 625 hundredths. So I can cross this out. Notice things are getting a little messy, but I'm okay. I'm okay. I always say if you need to rewrite things, it's all good. I'm feeling okay right now. All right, so we repeat the process. Now, in this case, we're just looking at these 2. So in the ones place, I have a 5 and I have a 5. In the tens place, I have a 5 and then I have a 0. So this actually makes this the next highest value. So 5 and 540 thousandths, leaving me with 5 as my smallest value, which is wild if you think about that. I think when we first had those decimals, I don't know if I would have thought 5 was the lowest value because it didn't have any decimals with it. And decimals are parts of things. So anyway, there it is. There we have it. There's the work. There's the job. That's what we're doing. You're awesome. Keep trying this stuff out today. You're going to have to practice both these skills as well as all the other skills we've talked about. Don't ever be afraid to ask questions. Keep up the good work. We'll catch you in the next one.